Notion probably about 6 months ago or so, and I found a life planner template on there, and I kind of set it up based on my own needs and also meshed it with some of the features that were already in there. So at the end of each month, I've gotten into the habit of going through each one of my life categories and all of my different goals that I've set for myself. And what I like to do is first I like to go through and check off any goals that I didn't check off previously. And then I like to update the goals depending on what those goals are. So let's see. So I'll go over some of my goals that I've completed this month, as well as some of the goals that I'm going to be working on for the next month. So for my personal goals this month, which basically consist of my morning routine, my night routine, and then also I have a tracker for my morning habits and my night habits. I also have here a vision board, which it's actually the template that it came with. So one of my goals was actually just to update the vision board with a few of the photos that are personal to me and inspire me, which I like to do that every now and then when I'm doing a lot of creative work or heavy thinking or a little bit stressed. It's really fun to just go look for a picture on Pinterest. I usually Google something like aesthetic X, Y, and Z. So like for my morning habits, just as a little spark of inspiration for myself, I found like a few cute little anime pictures. So my goal was to at least track my habits for my morning habit tracker as well as my night habit tracker. And I've noticed, which is not surprisingly so, my night habits have been struggling immensely. So I do want to reevaluate the habits that I set for myself for June and see if there's a way that I can modify my current routine so that I'm actually able to complete my night routine a little bit more effectively. Whenever one of my routines is lacking, I always like to go back and see where I can modify that routine in order to come up with a better solution so that I can actually complete that routine more often than not. So for my night routine, one of the things that really helped me was actually transitioning my bedroom a little bit for the summer season. So switching out my bedding and having fresh new sheets and also putting up like my summer curtains, as well as building myself a nightstand. I think that's going to help me out a lot with my night routine because it helps me to feel a little bit more relaxed at the end of the day, knowing that I'm getting into a bed that is really comfortable and really helps me to wind down at the end of the day. I think I'm also going to transition my night routine to start it a little bit earlier so that I'm not completely wiped out by the end of the night and I just am ready to get into bed. So for my finances, I wanted to open up a few bank accounts for my daughter, which I ended up doing. I had like some technical things that I needed to do as far as like my student loan payments. I recently had my student loans forgiven, which I was extremely excited about, but I do need to check in on that because I could potentially be getting a refund, hopefully. So I did need to check in on that, which I didn't get done. And then I had to send in like some receipts for insurance and things like that. So I did list those things here for my financial goals. So I'm gonna keep some of those items on that I didn't complete. And now I wanna add on some additional financial goals for this month. And my goal this month is to start saving. So my family and I are trying to plan a trip to Europe, and there is a lot of us, so it takes a lot of time and effort to get everybody together, which I'll talk a little bit more about in the travel section. But I want to start making sure that I'm saving properly in order to go on that trip. So I'm going to list that in my financial goals. So for leisure, I do like to do a bucket list for each season. I love the changing of the seasons. I love all four. Well, I'm not going to say I love all four seasons because me and winter, we're not like the best of friends. But I still do recognize that we do need a change of seasons and transitioning. Okay, so my battery is dying. I have 12 minutes left on my memory card. Let's make this quick. So I think I left off at health. So I do want to try to meal prep more often. So I put on here meal prep at least for 1 week out of the 4. Like I said, I am working from home, also taking care of my toddler full time. So I'm going to try and save more time during the week. Meal prepping on Sundays can sometimes be a little bit tiring because after working all week, I kind of like Sunday to be like a relaxing day. But I do also recognize that if I do meal prep on Sunday, that would also help me to have an easier week. So I do want to meal prep at least once. I also started Rise Coffee. I was getting Instagram ads for it all the time. So I did start trying their matcha. And I like it so far, so I want to continue with it and see if I notice a big difference. I've also been doing AG1, and sometimes drinking that greens powder is just too much for me because it is like it's a lot of liquid between drinking water and then drinking tea and then, drinking the greens powder to get my vitamins in. So I do want to try to alternate, maybe do AG1 a few days out of the week and then maybe do some type of vitamin, like a vitamin pill that I can just take. And I also want to schedule a 6-month checkup with my doctor. I had blood work done about 6 months ago, and she did say that she wanted to do a 6-month follow-up. So that would be in August. So I have that on my list as well to follow up there. So for mental health, I put on here to recite my affirmations. Affirmations do really help me when I'm stressed out, and I try to repeat them several times per day. So that's one of my goals, is to be consistent with my affirmations. I also put on here to contact at least one therapist. I was in therapy for postpartum and up until about January, just because my therapist was leaving the organization that she was at. So I do want to try and get back into therapy and just to help with that wellness aspect of my life. So whenever I work out, it does make a huge difference in my life, and I really want to make sure that I am working out consistently. And when I say consistently, I don't want to force myself like every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Make sure that you're working out. So I put on here, I want to make sure that I'm working out a few times per week. And that can literally consist of 15 minutes of cardio in the morning just to get myself out of bed and get myself moving. It helps me a lot throughout the day. My energy levels are higher. It boosts my productivity, etc., etc. All the benefits of working out. So I did mark that as one of my goals for this month. So for beauty, I know I mentioned in my night habits before about not being too consistent with my nighttime habits. So I put in here that I want to be consistent 3 times during the week for my night habits. Again, I'm not going to be too hard on myself if I don't meet that goal, but I'm putting it as a goal anyway, just to encourage healthier sleep habits. So for my home, of course, this is the central focus of my channel because I believe that our home is a central focal point for our well-being, and healthy home habits help us to maintain our well-being. So I do have a list of projects that I have on here that I want to complete this month. So I also have been thinking about moving, so I put on here to contact at least 3 apartments, and I had this on my list last month, but I didn't get around to it, so I'm keeping it on my list again for this month. So for travel, I want to schedule an appointment for my family to meet up and talk about our Europe trip. And like I said, it's like herding cats. There's so many of us. Everybody's schedules are all over the place, and I just want to get us into some kind of meeting to even start talking about it, start planning it, so we can actually get our trip out of the group chat. So for my goals for this month, business and career wise, so I mentioned before about having a party decor business with my sister, and I want to get that back up and running as like a weekend project. I want to update and refresh our Instagram, and I know I opened up a website for us, so I want to look into our website and get that actually up and running and design the website. I also want to get back more onto Instagram. Sometimes it's really hard for me to focus on so many different projects throughout the week as opposed to being heavily focused on Instagram, because I can sit down and film once a week, as opposed to Instagram where it's a little bit more active and I constantly have to be engaged. So I do want to get back to, hopefully my battery lets me film this last little bit. So I do want to get back onto Instagram and start being a little bit more active on there. I also am really interested in home renovations, obviously, and I want to learn a little bit more about using different power tools and woodworking. One of my long-term goals is to be able to maybe not necessarily build my own home from complete scratch, but I would like to put a lot of work into my own home personally. So I want to start the process of learning a little bit more about that. My battery died again. So lastly, I am on Like to Know It. I do like to create design collages on there. That's kind of one of my passion projects. I love to put together different designs. So I want to brainstorm some ideas to come up with 5 new collages that I can post to my Like to Know It this month. And I'll put those up on my Like to Know It as well as my website. Okie dokie. So those are all of my goals this month. And I'm really happy with all of the progress that I've made on last month's goals. Even if I didn't complete every single goal that was on my list, I'm still pretty happy that I was able to complete even some of the list. Oftentimes, I do need to remind myself that it's not about achieving every single task that I've set for myself. It's more about the journey, taking things one day at a time, being consistent in a way that works for me, and continuing to be. So my camera cut off on me, but what I was trying to say is I'm actually really happy with all of the progress that I've made on last month's goals. Even if I didn't complete every single goal that was on my list, I'm really proud of myself for completing at least some of that list. Oftentimes, I need to remind myself that it's not about achieving every single task that I set for myself. It's more about the journey, taking things one day at a time, being consistent in a way that works for me, and living a happy and well life by staying in the moment.